everybody, we are live from vNext. Really excited to be the very first live streaming podcast. Thanks to Eric, who's put together a pretty amazing kit. Award-winning community contributor, Eric Massey.
And then this is the first ever live stream ever.
It is. I think it is the first ever live stream from vNext. So we are making history right now. Like, not like it's a bigger deal than it is, but this is probably the biggest event that's ever happened.
And Eric in the back producing has a slight smile because he's been spending his life for the last 3 months putting this together.
He's just happy it's gone live and it's not exploded.
It's kind of working. He's giggling. He's in a happy place.
So I'm sure everybody vaguely has an idea of who we are, but Scott, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction?
Sure. Hey, Scott Rendell, Cloud Solution Architect, working with partners at Microsoft.
Cool. And Michael?
I'm Michael Trusler. I'm a senior technical consultant at Jabra, so I do things about the video portfolio at Jabra.
Cool. And I'm Tom Arbuthnot. I do a bunch of team stuff, empowering cloud, pure IP, and just generally all over LinkedIn every day. So thanks everybody for joining us. This is going to be a very casual chat. We've just come off of Ted's keynote at vNext, and he took us through the history of the industry and what I thought was really interesting, whole load of insights. It was really great. But the last thing he landed on was the impact that CoPilot and AI and Power Platform is kind of going to have on our industry. So I wanted to jump off there. Michael, I'll start with you. Are you in the Jimmy Vaughan camp of CoPilot? What do you think the impact's going to be?
I think that it is going to be transformational, but it is not going to change the world, I guess, what that means. So the example we give on the Selling Teams Room show we do on Friday mornings, people send...
Good subtle plug there, brilliant.
Selling Microsoft Teams Rooms with Jimmy and Marion, the fastest 10 minutes of Teams Rooms knowledge. During the week, we collect links. And so then someone has to take those links, create a slide, and constantly rip and repeat constantly every week for every show. It'd be a lot easier to go like, hey, CoPilot, add this link to this week's deck.
Yeah,
and then we pop it open.
And that's such a simple problem to solve. Yeah. Like we're looking at, you see these AI examples of them doing amazing things, but there's some real fundamental things we do. That's a great example where obviously it's not particularly a complicated task, but AI could easily achieve that. Right,
so suddenly what takes an hour to put the PowerPoint together could be dropped down to 10, 15 minutes. Basically a formatting, rearranging the slides in order.
Yep.
Yeah.
As opposed to literally creating a slide, going to your screenshots or whatever, that hopefully the CoPilot will do some of that with the PowerPoint designer.
Here's what's interesting, right? So that you use that as your use case. I think it's a great first use case. If CoPilot's putting all the content into the PowerPoint, it's not that much of a leap to say CoPilot understands the types of content you're putting together. And by the way, this might also be interesting for you because it's indexing everything that's going on. It pattern matches. You seem to care about Teams Rooms. And by the way, this press release dropped or this bit of news dropped.
And then can you write a script for this PowerPoint? And then could you
present it for us?
Yeah.
Scott, what's your thoughts on this? And I guess I'd extend the question to you. You work with partners a lot. How are you seeing your partners react? Is it too early?
I'm not seeing partners react just yet. I think they're still waiting for it to drop. I mean, CoPilot's only been released to a small subset, so
it's not even everybody at Microsoft yet.
No,
it's very
it's not. So I think everybody's just kind of waiting to see where it lands, and then, one of the things I've been reading lately about AI is the breadth of where it sits. I mean, we talk a lot about it in verticals, right? So AI in healthcare and how it's going to help with diagnosis because it can draw from this large pool of data. We talk about it in analytics and how it can just scrub and go through and get rid of the stuff that's extraneous. And Michael talked about it, finding links and putting them in. When it comes down to the Office suite, I think of things like, I don't know how to do a pivot table, but you know what? CoPilot does. Hey, CoPilot, make me a pivot table, right?
What is a pivot table? We
I'm not exactly sure.
Are we all going to finally be able to actually drive Excel? Because basically nobody can, right? It's like this amazing, powerful tool that nobody can use.
My niece, she graduated. She's in finance. And I just, off the cuff, she's still relatively young, 24. Off the cuff, asked her, so how good are you at Excel? And she just kind of looks down at her feet and somewhat embarrassed and goes, I'm getting really good at Excel. Because in her work, it's thousands of lines, and she's got to analyze this data, and so she's an Excel powerhouse. So they keep making them. In case you're wondering, is that a dying art? Colleges keep producing finance graduates.
But that's a really interesting use case for AI again, because I think that's an area where you can see how it will have a real impact on. PowerPoint is the example they used in the CoPilot launch. Like PowerPoint's incredibly powerful. Like I live in presenting to people, and I wouldn't say I'm great at driving PowerPoint, but you know what it's capable of. But if you could say, do some nice transitions for me, and it gives you some examples and does them.
So can CoPilot fix features that aren't there? So I was looking for a way to automatically move to the next slide at the end of a video. PowerPoint does not support that. Can CoPilot then create an animation automatically in the background to do that for me, instead of me having to spend 20 minutes on Bing looking for how to do that?
Are you asking for how long before CoPilot codes the feature? Because that's an interesting conversation.
Well, it's just like, it ends up being a hacky workaround that you have to put. So my video is 30 seconds long, so you could create an animation that after 30 seconds do the transition.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
So if the video pauses, if it stutters, it's going to transition to the next slide, which is hacky. But if CoPilot knows that, it could do that for me instead of me having to spend 20 minutes learning the hack.
Here's the workaround to what you're trying to achieve. I just got visions of CoPilot saying, thank you very much for your feedback. Please fill in the feedback form.
Maybe it could write, do they still do VBS in Office?
I don't know.
I think they pulled that, haven't they?
Yeah. I think from a security point of
CoPilot
view.
could just write it then. Here's the macro.
Well, that's another good example. I know businesses that have run on macros, like their whole finance is macros in Excel, and again, you could see CoPilot doing that. Scott, you wrote a whole paper on this. Just talk to us briefly about what you're doing.
So mine it focused on Chatbot Ethics, and the two examples I drew from were, of course, the Microsoft Zao, I think I'm saying that right, that was released in China, which was hugely successful. They love it, and I think it's got like 47 million followers today still, and it was released in 2015, I think, and they love it, and it was great. Mm-hmm. It was fashioned after a young Chinese female, 20s, 17ish, somewhere in there, and just supposed to be very upbeat, and then contrast that with Tay, the Twitter bot that didn't last long. Lasted all of 16 hours.
Foul-mouthed racist.
Well, and
it didn't start that way.
No. But it was
people ruin everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I say it because I don't want to assign genders to chatbots, but it was designed to be a younger female, right, and somewhat snarky, if you will, and of course people knew that going out because there was press releases and says, hey, we're going to do Tay and go out there and talk, and of course people just were just decimated, and the learning algorithm behind it, and just for clarification, I have nothing to do with AI. I am not an engineer. I don't understand algorithms, but I can parrot them really well. So I could say logarithm. I can't even say.
You can't say.
I can't say.
You have to say that back.
Algorithms three times fast.
You sure you didn't mean logarithm?
Logarithm, right? So
I'm trying to just confuse you.
So it was written to learn and then try to repeat in that short period of time, and of course it was just a nightmare, and they took it down, and it even prompted the Microsoft vice president to issue an apology.
Yeah, when you challenge the internet wins.
Yeah, every time.
But I think we're at one of those moments where we all think it's going to be impactful, and we're not sure how. And with all these things, you get the kind of the peak of like it's going to change everything, and then it doesn't quite pan out to change everything. But I think over the next 3-5 years, again, back to Ted's keynote talk over the last kind of 10 years when the RTC group at Microsoft was established and all the history, I think industry-wise we're at one of those points where even beyond just UC and Collab, we're going to be like, oh, we didn't appreciate that in 5 years' time it would be this, and this,
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a key point that people are forgetting, and only because the what's reported and what's in the media about it is the public-facing stuff, the Chat GPT and all that kind of stuff, and I think people forget about all the other things that it can do and go into it. But the other thing that nobody's really talking about is AI is really, like, I guess at this point, because it's been around 6-7 years, right? For the most part, it's really a toddler or even an adolescent, right? It has an adolescent
even
mindset.
less for generative AI. We've been using AI for ages in terms of like Google search is AI, video optimization is AI, sound noise suppression is AI.
Spell check and Word.
Spell check, any notification you get, right?
Yeah, but this generative AI is the next. I think it's captured the public's imagination. Like, it's interesting when you're in the technology space, when things break out of your bubble, like I've been doing UC for over a decade, and you'd have to explain to people, what do you do? I do Link, I do Skype for Business.
Is that just a plug? Is that what that was?
Yeah, a little bit.
And you do it at empowering.cloud. You help.
Help over 3,000 people if you're asking, Michael.
I wasn't, but go ahead.
But, you have to explain to real people, like, oh, it's like Messenger but for business, or it's but Teams broke out of that. Like, everybody in the real world knows what Teams is now, and everybody knows what AI is, and OpenAI and ChatGPT, because they put together that proof of concept in a chat mechanism, blew up user-wise, and I think they've pushed the whole public awareness massively forward by releasing that and showing people what's possible.
And I think that I don't want to say it's premature, right? The release of some of this stuff, but what kind of keeps me awake at night?
It's beta.
Yeah, right. Yeah. What keeps me awake at night is the fact that we've just now empowered people who maybe shouldn't have the power to write code. Via ChatGPT. And granted, there's ethics around it, and we've talked about not on this cast, but we've talked about the ethics, and Microsoft's released the responsible AI version 2 now, things like that. But there still comes down to some personal responsibility for what you do with that.
But so when you say writing code, are you talking like it's easier potentially to get access to hacker level code, or I was just texting with a friend, and he's like, this creating an account for rooms, to resource accounts for rooms. I don't want to do all that PowerShell to do all these things. I'm like, well, just ask ChatGPT to create you a script and change the name as necessary. That's a useful case.
It is useful, and I've actually used that
kind of coding.
Yeah.
One of my first ChatGPT things was like, write a PowerShell script to assign a phone number to a Teams user or something, and it did it slightly different than I would.
Yeah.
Probably more accurate than I did, but either way works, right? There's multiple ways.
I guess the risk, and maybe you're speaking to this, Scott, is like if you don't know PowerShell and you ask it to generate a script and you're working for an enterprise, to what level do you just blindly trust that versus validate? And but that's the risk with all new technology, isn't it? Like you can do the wrong thing with it.
Yeah, and to Michael's point, there are going to be bad actors out there, and there's going to be bad AI.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's going to be AI with no guardrails on it, and so that kind of stuff really keeps me up at night. And granted, the security stack for AI, or the CoPilot security stack that we've been talking, but Microsoft's been talking about,
right.
Is going to be able to look for that kind of stuff. But it's just really interesting. All of a sudden, you've got this whole new subset of people that have access to stuff that they would have never had access to before.
Yeah.
It would have made my life a lot easier in college writing a software engineering degree, being able to say, hey, what is the proper, how do you fix this sort algorithm? I would still need to know, like the teacher, we have to use I forget the name of them, bubble sort or log and whatever. It was the 90s. But they made me learn COBOL.
But I mean, does it have it does, I think, have an impact on that whole industry, which is, you look at like the challenges in the whole software industry around security and best practices around code. It's very hard to scale to the industry for software and SaaS and maintain good standards. So does AI become a really good mechanism to check you're following security, coding best practices? Is it really a co-pilot, or is it going to start replacing some of the code generation?
Well, I do want to say I welcome our new AI overlords.
You're fully on board.
I'm fully on board, yes.
Yeah, I think it has, we talked a little bit about some of the scary stuff, but I think it has some tremendous benefits from a security standpoint, from, the GitHub, CoPilot, and to Ted's conversation earlier, it will help people do more.
100%.
So I think there's some good stuff in that, and I really like to see more and more people evangelize the positives, because I think the media likes to focus on the negative and all the scary things.
And I think, quite honestly, if I'm an average person, it's like, great, I can write hey, Bing, write me a story about my house in the woods in the style of Snoop Dogg. And that is fun for a while, but what is the actual utilitarian value of that?
Right.
Okay, it's a time waster. And by the way, on a road trip, we did it. It's like, hey, just tell us a murder mystery of the family traveling to Chicago, where Jessica is the murderer. And it wrote a little story.
That's cool.
Oh, wow.
But it was a time killer. But I think what probably will end up happening is there'll be one of these shows in like 20 years, remember the 20s, and there'll be this thing ChatGPT and the comedians making jokes, and then everybody kind of forgets about it, and then when you end up finding out like 5 years later, it is everywhere, but it's not obvious. You're not asking it; it's just doing things.
Yeah. So I saw a friend of mine was doing holiday planning, and they used it for that, and I thought that was a really interesting use case, where previously you would have Googled a ton of links and worked out what to do. They were just like, we're going to XYZ, what should we do? What types of hotels are they? And that's interesting because in two ways. One, it changes how people behave consumer-wise, but also the whole advertising media industry gets turned on its head as well.
The SEO of how do you bubble up to be a place to be seen from ChatGPT versus just people always click. This is the search term we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, just you look at Alphabet/Google and what Bing are doing. That's interesting, disrupting that whole industry as well.
The one thing that is that I tried that didn't work. It worked, but it didn't work. Is write me a 20-question trivia quiz. It wrote out 20 questions, and I said, hey, show me the answers, and it showed the answers. Then I said, give me another one. It gave me the same 20 questions.
Uh-oh.
Same 20 questions. Then I did a couple days later, same 20 questions. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
Well, again, it's still learning, right?
Or not. It's like, these are good questions. Why would you want to get better?
I know.
Are you challenging my collection
I
of
am-
Well, it knows you
questions?
didn't use them yet. So
I am the overlord, Michael. I know
Right.
better than you. These are the questions.
yeah, use these and I'll give you 20 more.
Right.
The hallucination thing is super interesting, and I wouldn't say I fully even understand it, even half understand it. But we use the ChatGPT 3.5 for podcast transcripts and summaries and stuff, and it's awesome because I can throw a transcript through and say, correct all the spelling and grammar, and the prompt is like, correct all the spelling and grammar, don't mess with the text, da 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 da. And that's worked. Like, we've done it like 50, 60 times. And then one day I used it, and it just started adding copy to the content, and it was just making extra stuff up. And it was like the prompt said don't do it, but it was just doing it anyway. Reset the chat, and it came back to normal. But there's definitely something about, you have to be aware that it can drift sometimes.
Right. Well, yeah, because it remembers based on your identity, the
Yeah,
things
you
you talked
sign
about
in.
before.
Yeah.
I used it to create pictures I couldn't find.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
So you're trying to do an illustration. You're like, I can't find, a dog and a cat hugging in a field.
Well, and also, you know your
create a dog and a cat hugging in a field.
Yeah, and you know you're copyright free then as well, which is
Exactly.
really nice because
Because ChatGPT doesn't check.
you're
It's like,
generative.
It's my content.
it's new art essentially.
Yeah.
Even if it's generative, it is still new art. Like, it's Andy Warhol basically. He took Campbell soup cans, repurposed them. Sue me all you want. It is a new art. I've reframed that your thing to.
Well,
be.
until the lawyers get a hold of it and say, no, we're going to have to license
Well,
it somehow.
so there's an interesting pivot. The whole thing around like the Drake songs and the Kanye songs, like taking somebody's voice print and recreating art. Do they have rights to that?
This
because
goes
their
back
voice
into
print?
sampling in the 90s and Negative Land and U2 and Luke Skywalker. No,
It
Luke
repeats.
Skywalker from
But sampling's one thing, right? But like
You mean the Mandalorian? Would they recreate it?
The Miami rap group.
Oh.
The very, very foul. Anyway, they sampled Roy Orbison, Oh Pretty Woman, and rapped over the top, and then Roy Orbison sued. So this has been a topic in art for a long time, going well into before the 90s, really. Where it was like samples have to be 7 seconds or longer. Okay, is it, or are you doing something uniquely creative to that work that makes it new?
Yeah.
Or are you just literally playing "Oh Pretty Woman" to steal off of the people knowing that
But
song?
there's I don't know, in my head there's a meaningful difference between a sample, which already, like you say, you probably have to license depending on the use case, and I created a whole new
Two Life Crew,
Drake.
by the way, Luke Skywalker and Two Life Crew. That was.
Okay.
Good. For anybody doubting Michael's knowledge there, don't.
Yeah, I'm getting older. It's a little slower, but yeah, Two Life Crew.
It's not the teleprompter over there that you're reading from. So.
Eric's like, this thing's going downhill. We're starting to talk Two Life Crew. This is like one step from me having to hit the kill switch.
We're not getting a podcast slot next year, are we?
No.
Cool. I want to pivot off of AI. I mean, I think it's super fascinating, but let's bring it in a little bit. Michael, talk to me a little bit about what Jabra is doing and what you're excited about. Maybe not even Jabra, but in that voice and video space.
So there's a couple things, and you should come to my session where I talk about a couple of those things.
When is your session?
It is in 39 minutes.
So do I get a mention? Because Michael's been running around telling everybody they get a mention. This is his plea.
Come to my session. I was going to mention you during my talk, but if you're not going to be there, then I'll cut it. Actually, legitimately, Dan is someone I was going to mention, as was Tom and Scott.
Well, who's opposite you that you're so afraid of?
Tracy Her.
Oh,
She's a beast. She's a monster.
Yes. Yeah, you should be afraid of her.
That's a tough side by side, especially in this community.
And by beast and monster, I mean nothing but the highest praise.
She's
tactical, technical.
Everybody
ninja.
here knows who she is, and her sessions are always absolutely gun. So
here's a Scott fun fact. Tracy was one of my mentors when I first started at Microsoft.
Really?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, she was amazing. It's still amazing.
I love that everybody's nudging Tracy along to do more stuff because she's just like absolute gold at everything she does.
Yeah.
Like, come on, talk, do more content.
So Tracy, shout out to you wherever you are. So you've
So
been immortalized.
the exciting video things coming up. There's a couple things interesting. Multi-streams coming out of cameras. So right now, conference room cameras send one stream. That's what everybody sees.
Right.
Good. Multi-stream then. We'll use Teams as the example because here we are. Now the team service can pick which stream to show, either through AI or through the layout you've chosen.
Well, and you're talking about framing.
This is in IntelliFrame.
Essentially,
Yeah.
essentially,
Okay.
it's essentially IntelliFrame, but it's a higher
okay.
level in that we're sending multiple streams.
Yeah. So for context, the current, I don't know if it's current or not, but IntelliFrame could take one big feed and cut on the MCU. So you're sending it one you can only send it 1080, can't you? One 1080 frame and it zooms in, it can optimize, but this is sending individual feeds, so you could send higher quality.
3 1080 feeds.
Right.
Yeah.
So the AI is framing the face. It then blocks you out and then can send it as a separate stream.
As opposed to AI in the background, or even compute on the device doing some pre-processing before it goes to the backend service. So that coming to fruition is there. I mean, yeah, I believe Zoom doesn't have multi-stream yet. They have the single stream, so they're ahead of Teams on that. And in my demo, I'm going to show an example of that, showing Zoom. So there'll be Zoom talk here at
dangerous. Everybody's going to Tracy's session.
You just growl at that.
so that's exciting.
That just killed your session, right?
Other exciting things are intelligent multiple cameras intelligently. So right now on Teams rooms, you can have multiple cameras, but you have to manually switch. So like, hey, I want the camera in front of me, or no, I want to have the camera to the side, and then I have to switch it.
Yeah, you can have a camera at a time. Multi-camera is not what people call multi-camera.
Correct. So what's close to happening, I think Logi will probably be the first to market, Neat has also announced it, is depending on which camera, so say there's 2 cameras, so whatever, there's one here and one to the right. So if I'm looking ahead, that one sees the best view of my face. That is the image sent to the cloud. If I turn and talk to Tom and there's a camera behind him, the system magically changes to the camera over.
I don't want the side of your head. I'll reframe on your face.
Which I think it may have been mentioned in the talk this morning. There was the old poly center of table, the first center of table.
Yeah, the round table.
And it ended up being called the side of face camera because everybody's looking at the monitor to see the presentation of the remote people. And the camera just shows the side of the face.
And that's the big jump in this, going back to center of room cameras in 2023, is the AI switching can deal with that intelligently.
Yep.
I think you're right. That's a really interesting space. I would think if you look at, like, obviously we do like quite a lot of content. Michael does tons of really good content. Like the effort and overhead you have on editing and cutting and keeping people interested is a big overhead. If the AI can make our enterprise meetings genuinely more interactive, like if they directed like you had a director,
essentially like a virtual director,
exactly.
Or like in a Teams live event.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
do something like that, and instead of having a personal producer, let the AI
do it. I think that would be really interesting for engagement, because one of the biggest challenges of hybrid is keeping people engaged, because they've got their Teams and their email and their mobile, and it's harder in person. Not impossible if you're super rude, you can just do it anyway. But when you're in person, you're unlikely to get hammering on your email, but at home it's really easy. So I think anything this technology can do to keep people engaged by cutting and splitting, and you can definitely see Crestron had a good demo at ISE where they had the room rigged up with loads of cameras, and you could get up and go to the whiteboard and it would reframe and cut, and it would cut back and forth on the speaker. So yeah, I think you're right, it's really interesting.
Yep. And then there's a lot of intelligence coming into cameras.
Go on, drop some bombs,
trying to think about
Michael.
what I can think about what's been thing. Let's just say there's more just more intelligent framing, more people tracking, more. We'll just park it there. That there's a lot, much like ChatGPT is, a explosion in new thoughts and ideas on how this can treat us. Video is getting there with multiple cameras working together intelligently to provide one seamless, accurate image that is interesting to the remote attendee.
Yeah. So along those lines, I want to address a comment that Ted made earlier, and we're kind of building towards with all this technology, is that that move back to in person. I don't know that it's going to be as big as people think it is. That's just my opinion. I don't see a lot of this. Of course, now granted, my use case is different, and I think some of ours is different because we primarily work from home. We don't have to be in an office. But for those, I guess for those people that do, then these meeting room spaces are going to be more appropriate and more needed, if you will. But to what level do you think that's going to be? Because I really think there's so many companies figured out that they can do this kind of stuff remotely. That why they nixed the office altogether. They got rid of it. They kept the infrastructure, got rid of the office, said no, you can just work from home. So I'm just curious what you guys think about how much coming back to the office and these rooms will be.
I heard this at Microsoft, and then when I left the Microsoft bubble and joined Jabra, I continued to hear it within Jabra. So it seems to be, there are two sources of information now, that conference rooms are, more conference rooms are being created, but they're all being created smaller. So a former 12-person conference room becomes 4-people conference rooms. They just put a wall in. So return to work is happening. It will never be at the numbers as before.
Right.
As there are more hybrid people, and as such, the room that used to need 8 people looking at each other and 2 remote people will now have 4 people looking at each other in the room and 4 remote people.
Or on the other side, yeah. Okay.
So So there's still a need for a lot of this technology. Scaling it to super large rooms is, you get into classrooms, universities, that sort of thing. But the large conference room is not. Those are always so unique anyway that they're tough to bundle into. There's so much custom stuff.
I have one question I just thought of while you were asking, and forgive me if I'm usurping. ECDNs. The fact that people aren't going back to the office, what's going to happen with the ECDN?
Oh, well, you can talk to, was it Collective
here? Yeah.
Collective here? Okay.
I always said back in the day, right, because with the ECDNs, if you don't know, is the thing is if somebody's doing a presentation and you have 1,000 people, and God, I don't want to do the math, and it's 100 people, it's like 10 meg or however much. Or
well, just say the 1 meg downlink or whatever.
Yeah, so with 100 people, you need 100 gig of down internet, and if your company only has 20, your people inside the office trying to watch the town hall are going to have a terrible video experience.
Yep.
So my answer was always just send everybody home that day and use their internet at home. That way we're not overloading our 20 gig of internet into the office.
Well, and hope the kids aren't home streaming that day in your neighborhood
Xbox,
with cable, right? So, or whatever.
So the ECDN then fixes that problem that you pull down 10 feeds and then you distribute that internally through a peer-to-peer thing so you don't trash your internet uplink.
We look at a lot of usage information, and we've certainly seen that enterprises, while conference, like I agree with you, Michael, like big conference room usage is down, or one person will sit in a room, people are joining meetings from their desktop. So actually the concurrency on that town hall scenario, if they're not going into a big town hall area and watching one giant screen, the concurrency will be up. But I do think you're right. I think it's interesting. It's not, the use case isn't like it used to be, where it used to be we're having even regional all hands in finance, a few thousand people. That would be a really big deal bandwidth-wise. Going to your hybrid question, there's two things I think that are interesting there. Whenever I have that debate with customers, I'm always like, if they're on the side of we're going back to the way it was, I'm like, what, 100%? And then they can't say 100%. So then now we're arguing over where the percentage lies, right? Because it's not going back to 100%. No. But the other thing is the bean counters, the accountants, like real estate, travel costs are massive. Even if you posited that there's a productivity hit on people being remote, then still the costs, and businesses run on money, right? So costs are what impacts things. But I do wonder if in a few years, particularly in tech, like people are going to be like, oh, the innovation has stalled slightly because we're not getting that async. And you look at Microsoft, you look at Apple, Amazon, Google, there's definitely something to be said by we still need a campus where we want to get people to smash heads together in rooms and eat together and socialize. So I don't know what the answer is.
It's a bit of a missed message because they're developing all this technology so you can stay at home, whiteboarding and things like that, and then they're saying, no, go back to the office.
If you look at the role hires, they're all like, we need to be in Redmond. So it's interesting to see. There's not one answer, and it'll depend on the industry and it'll depend on the people. But we're not going back to the way it was. Obviously, it's going to be some kind of hybrid.
Even if it goes back essentially to the way it was, the remote attendee, because I worked for a company out of Connecticut. It was headquartered there. Everyone in IT, barring 3 or 4 people, were in Connecticut. I was in Indiana. And so that was in the old days where you'd take a laptop, turn it around, point it at the marker board, and use the speaker and microphone in a 2003 era laptop. So it was a terrible experience.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me listen in, and you try to speak up and nobody hears you.
Right, yeah.
And because they turn the volume down or whatever, you're just forgotten about.
Or they'd go for coffee and they'd carry on the conversation and like they'd have the answer by the time they got back.
Right. So even if it does get back to that, it'll never get. There was always some level of hybrid remote worker, depending on your job role. That it's going to be much happier, productive remote workers than we had.
I'm hoping. I love all this conference room innovation. Like it's cool, but I hope we see more innovation and price point innovation of HomeKit, because a lot of us, so you take the people that do content at home, we tend to have higher end gear. Some people have got XLR mics, they've got proper headphones, they've got mixers. Like it'd be nice if that kind of tech starts to come down into the USB based device, and I think it's coming as well, where the average home worker has decent camera, decent lighting, decent reliable audio, and you don't have to spend megabucks for that. But seeing enterprises say, we're not paying for real estate, let's refund some of that money into a good hybrid experience.
That brings up an interesting point. We've got all these devices that are connected via USB and or Bluetooth, which really are your only options right now, and they're pretty old. I mean, okay, yeah, USB 3's got some amazing speeds and you can do some really neat stuff with it, but how long is that sustainable? What's next?
Oh, you're looking for a new protocol. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's DECT.
There is DECT.
Which ultimately connects via USB back into the PC, but DECT does solve some of that Bluetooth overload, Because if you live in an apartment complex and the Wi-Fi collisions and all that,
Yeah.
so Dext helps with that. But
And people overstretch wireless Bluetooth as well all the time because they think they're on a wireless headset at home, so they'll walk to their kitchen and Bluetooth can't hack that.
Yeah, well, no, Dext will definitely take care of that. So Wi-Fi 6 is out. I'm wondering if that's not where we should be looking.
I theoretically have it at home. It's on my router. I don't think my laptop supports it. I think I have a Mac app one. I think the M1 supports Wi-Fi 6.
Yeah, I'm sure it would.
But who wants to use a Mac? I just use it to troubleshoot.
Oh no!
Like, hey, the customer said this doesn't work when connecting our camera into a Mac. All right, let me try. I have a Mac.
See
if I can
the M1.
recreate it.
I've got an M1 as well. I jump back and forth, but it's impressive kit. Like that M1 chipset, I think we'll see the same revolution around that happen on the Wintel side as well.
I really think the higher frequency, your Wi-Fi 6 and above, I think is where we're going to see a lot of this new wireless technology. Because
5G was going to solve it all.
What's that?
5G was going to solve it all.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive, I have to admit.
Well, in the very limited places you can get.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But some of the Wi-Fi innovation through 5 and 6, interesting conversation, is about multiple concurrency as well. So that's one of the issues, is all the bandwidth being used up.
This is nerd talk.
Yeah, we've really got into
nerd
We kind of covered everything, didn't we?
How much nerdier can we get?
I don't know. I think we can go there.
As our viewer count falls to 0.
Okay, these guys are off the rails. Time to go.
Like it's always been a niche audience, Michael. For us, so don't worry.
We're definitely carving that niche a little deeper.
So we've got another 10 minutes or so. We've got to get Michael to his talk. But Scott, for the rest of the event, is there any particular standout sessions you're looking for, people you're looking to meet?
Other than mine.
Other than mine?
And mine while we're out there.
This is my first event since, that thing that happened where we were
we're not talking about that.
Where we all stayed home. So I'm really excited just to reconnect with some old peers and listen to what people are coming up with, because I love the innovation. I love the fact that you can take a topic, say Teams or AI or whatever, and just get different people's spin on it. And I'm really looking forward to just catching up and hearing what people have to say. That's really, for me, it's not very glamorous, not very geeky or nerdy, but for me, it comes down to that personal thing, and I'm just thrilled to be here and can't wait to see what some of the people are going to be talking about.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. One of the things I like about this show is they give plenty of bandwidth to socializing time. You have the drinks, you have the hours in the morning where there's no sessions. The sessions are absolutely great. Obviously Michael.
They clearly got my check to get my session published so I could talk. So
what are you talking about, Scott?
No, sorry, did I say that out loud?
What's your?
Of what am I talking about?
Yes.
Not what are you talking about, Willis? I'm doing the direct routing to operator connect migration path.
Oh, that's geeky.
That's a hot.
Very
hot
niche,
Yeah.
niche, whatever.
Unique.
Yeah, thank you.
Very unique
Right,
field.
yeah. Actually, you know what? That actually came out of a partner question to me. I actually had one of my partners say, "Hey, how do we do this?" I'm like, I don't know.
That can't be
I don't
hard.
know.
I don't know. I guess I'll go figure it out. So yeah, that's what it's about. There's actually, not to get into it, but there's a number of scenarios that you have to consider and some really innovative tools that partners can use to make that happen. So I'm really excited about it.
Good partner plug. Well done.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And what's yours, Tom?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to various sessions. There's great talkers, but the sessions are being recorded as well and going on demand, so that's really good.
Speaking of which,
Tracy's
here.
Tracy's off camera, but she's come and wave, Tracy. We were just hyping up your session and
That's
saying
right.
that
We're cracking you up.
people should probably go to your session over Michael's.
So yeah, I've already told Tracy I'm going to be sending people from my session to her.
You're just going to at the start. You're going to be like,
Go see Tracy. We'll talk later.
If you want to hear me ramble on, come to my session. If you want some good advice,
No,
then go
mine
to
is if you
Tracy.
don't want to have a depressing conversation. If you don't want to hear a depressing talk about death and sadness,
Oh, I would love to hear
and
that.
a little bit of IntelliFrame.
I'd like that.
Go to Tracy's where it's all
I'm definitely
sunshine
going to yours.
and something chocolate.
That's terrible. You shouldn't be talking about death. But yes, I am giving out motivational chocolate. So yes, come see me.
Tracy, tell us what we were just typing up your session. Tell us what
Oh
you were
my God,
talking
yeah.
about at 11.
It's all about the new things with common area devices, Teams common area devices, everything we've changed, and all of the cool new features.
And there's a lot that's changed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. A lot that's still coming, and I've been waiting for.
Yeah, but no, I think similar to Scott, like I'm going to hit a few sessions, but mainly it's meeting everybody in person. It's the corridor chats, it's the chats over drinks, which there are plenty at this show. That it's a rare opportunity for us to get together these
Which
days.
is analogous to return to office. Is those hallway
I
conversations?
don't know how much booze there was in your office, but there's a lot.
I mean, I work from home, so I got a beer.
Oh, yeah, then there was a lot. So,
I
yeah,
literally
yeah.
have a beer fridge right here next to me at work.
Yeah.
Does it have a time block on it?
No, duh. Like, I mean, if I'm going to work from home, let's go. Like, but if I'm going to work from home, it could be any hour of the day. So
This is true.
if I
Yeah,
need
you
a
work
beer-
with people all over the world.
If I need a beer
be
at
eight-
7:45 a.m., so be it.
Could be 8 1-hour sessions throughout the 24-hour
See?
period. So.
See?
Beer
long as
30 has always been a thing.
Yep.
So, Michael, other than your
Yeah.
session, anything stand out that you're looking forward to?
I signed up to some things, but I don't know what they are. I'm just going to look at the app and say, where do I go now?
Yeah. And Tracy.
Tracy's is one. I'm really bummed that I'm presenting at the same time that she
currently.
is.
Yeah.
When I went through it, like, I don't know, Thursday, I'm like, okay, there's me. Oh, we're at the same time.
I'm excited for the Eric Marcy session.
Oh yeah, he's doing the
Chat
AI.
GPT.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's-
AI will
Gonna be
replace you. Is it?
exciting.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I will replace you? Awesome.
Working ourselves, coding ourselves out of
Coding
jobs.
ourselves out of a job. Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're coming to time. I want to give Michael and Tracy plenty of time to prep. Not that Michael does any prep.
I don't need any prep. I mean, I have a PowerPoint. It has some slides in it, and there's a video.
Some notes for you to remember.
Eric, you may not be able to post my session on YouTube because there's going to be copyright violation.
Oh, there you go.
We'll try it. You'll post it up and just take it down.
It'll get
All right.
get no. It'll get no. What's the money? Where you get the kickbacks from YouTube.
Yeah. I did that intentionally so they can't make profit off my name, image, and likeness.
That's pretty much what we're all here for. Cool. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks. It's been great to do the first live stream podcast of vNext. Thanks, Eric, for putting this amazing rig together. We all just rocked up and did
As a speaker here, it sounds really good, at least to me. It sounds like NPR radio. Like,
This was really fun. Yeah,
welcome
thanks for
to
having me a
Book
part of
Talk
it.
Yeah.
with Scott and Tom and
yeah, and keep
Tracy, what book have you read lately that's really invigorated and inspired you to explore your inner self? What have you been reading lately?
I don't know. If I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Was it Skype for Business for Dummies?
Absolutely.
That's what gets everybody
That's
excited.
right.
Cool. So keep an eye on Eric's socials, his YouTube, his LinkedIn, his Twitter. There'll be more feeds going live. Thanks, Scott, Michael, and Tracy for randomly joining us at the last minute. Appreciate you coming in, and hope everybody has a good show. Hit us in the comments if you've got any questions or feedback. Thanks very much.
Bye, everyone.